Hi, my name is Ray Naylor, and this is the fifth episode of Promoting Your Creative Passion. I'd like to introduce my guest today, Shauna Jamison. Shauna, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today. Thanks, Ray.
Thanks a lot for being part of this tutorial series on promoting yourself. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking me to participate.
Now, I know that you work with Tom Kimmel, who actually happened to be my last show for the Performing Songwriter. Do you work with anyone else from now or periodically?
Yeah, I do a lot of work, like you mentioned, for Tom Kimmel. He also has several trios that he performs with from time to time. So I've worked with the Waymores, the Sherpas, and the New Agrarians. Also done some work for some of those artists independently as well. So Sally Barris. Currently doing a couple of small projects for Amelia White as well.
Okay. Now, in terms of the roles that you function in, in terms of how you work with promoting these artists, I assume there's more than just one thing that you do. So, what are all the different roles that you find yourself in?
Well, booking is a big part of it for Tom, especially. But with booking comes advancing those dates that are booked, travel, then promoting those events. So promoting those events could mean many things depending on the venue. It could mean getting posters out. It could mean online promotions, creating flyers or posters for those events, social media campaigns, like a lot of different pieces to that.
If you had to say of all the things that you've worked on in order to promoting the artists that you've worked with, are there any that stand out that have been the most important and the most successful?
Sure. So I think in order for it to be a key for advancing the artist's career, the big thing, especially when you're talking about a show, is no artist likes to play to an empty room. So when you can fill the house, I think that's always viewed as a success. So even if you go somewhere and maybe the financial payoff isn't there that time, you're still playing to a crowd where there's opportunity to be invited for additional opportunities down the road. So I think success can be viewed as a financial success. It can be viewed as a success if you get other opportunities from that and the opportunity to gain new fans from that experience as well.
You know, they talk a lot about branding these days. It's kind of a fancy jargon word of business.
Yes.
How do you look at that, and how would you, in a sense, I guess, interpret that for, any creative art, whether it be a songwriter like Tom or an artist or an actor or a dancer?
Sure. Branding is absolutely important no matter what you're promoting, because you need to make sure that you're promoting in a way that is going to give the vendor or whoever is purchasing the product or hiring the act, you want to give them a true picture of what it is that they're purchasing. And you also want to make sure that you're branding that artist or product in a way that is going to interest people, kind of draw them into what it is that you're doing and what it is that you're selling. So it really comes down to knowing when you're talking about booking, specifically, it comes down to knowing the act or the artist, the author, the poet, whoever it is that you're promoting. It comes down to knowing who they are and what they stand for so that you can basically promote them out to these venues and get some gigs booked in a setting that is going to be a good fit for both them and for the vendor.
In terms of the whole branding process, how do you, to the extent that's possible, separate out that artist from the crowd, so to speak?
Sure. Okay. That's a great question, Ray. There are many, many artists out there these days. So you definitely have to have something that sets you apart from the others that are out there. Working with Tom, which I've done now for the past 10 years. Um, Tom is the kind of person who can go anywhere and talk to anyone, has never met a stranger, and that very welcoming, familiar spirit that he has about himself is something that immediately draws people in. So when booking Tom, that's definitely something that we can play off of. And then, of course, if you take a look at his website or any materials that we put out there on Tom, I think they all speak that same thing about him. I mean, if you get his newsletters, you see pictures of his cat in the header. So he has that same approach to him. It's a very consistent approach, whether he's performing, whether he meets you in a coffee shop. And so, again, it just goes back to consistency.
You mentioned using the internet, and the music business has changed, let's say, since 20, 30 years ago, probably since then, in terms of, record companies versus independent records that a lot of artists do now. How do you see the changing music business affecting the promoting end of it?
Sure. Well, on the promoting end of it, a lot of times when you're looking to book someone for a show or have them back to a venue for like a repeat performance, a lot of times those venues are looking for, well, what's new with the artist? What's changed? Have they had a new CD come out? Now it's not as common for folks not to even have as many CDs manufactured over time. And in fact, that's one thing I've noticed with Tom over these last 10 years is that we don't keep as much, CD physical copies in stock anymore. We certainly do still have them, and Tom does take them out to shows, but it's been a switch from that online presence. So the digital downloads, drop cards are now becoming very common. So the idea of selling just a little card with a redemption code on it so that when you get back home, you download the album to your iPhone or to your iTunes account to listen to. So it's really just being creative in new ways to market yourself that aren't focused around that physical merchandise, so to speak.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, in terms of you being the promoter, you kind of talked about Tom in terms of how this fits in. I know when I used to, in the 90s, I booked some small venues, and a big part of the way I felt about the artist was their attitude. And how do you think, for like an independent artist who's promoting themselves, how would you recommend to them, I guess you'd say, how their attitude should be towards whoever they're promoting to?
Yeah, and your attitude will go a long way. So whether that's a good attitude or a bad attitude, and I think I can take this back to you have to think about what you view as success. So if you view success solely on the fact that you need to walk away with X number of dollars for that to be a success, you could be left with a bad attitude after some shows. So it has to go back to focusing on a success might mean that you've made X number of new fans because of a performance that evening. It could mean that you met one key person that was going to introduce you to someone else. So going back to that grassroots approach and thinking about success really in those ways and enjoying what you love. And if you have, a bad experience at a venue, really just try to think about, what is it that you can learn and take away from that so that you're not leaving a bad taste in someone's mouth and they're spreading word that you're a difficult person to work with, which may limit some of your opportunities down the road.
Well, I can tell you, we had a house concert with Tom, and we had 8 people, including my wife and myself, and he was very nice about it. I don't know what he was thinking inside, but how about networking? I think that's probably a large part of this also.
I think networking, not just on a personal level, but also business networking, getting your name out there. I know in the music business, a lot of times it can be viewed if you have a manager or if you have someone promoting you that, hey, I'm not getting any gigs. I'm not I'm not being invited to sing at such and such event. And I think it can be easy to put the blame. Sometimes that's not valid, but also take a look back at yourself and think about what are you doing to put yourself out there. So are you going to networking events? Are you going out to hear other people sing and perform and really seeing what it is that they're doing to hone their craft and work on yourself? I think that's definitely important. There's several, opportunities to network out there for musicians, for artists, songwriting organizations, attending, songwriting workshops, leading workshops, whatever it is that your craft is. There's plenty of ways that you can meet others in the industry, and you never know when one of those connections is going to lead to a fantastic opportunity for you.
Right. Putting all this together, what would you say is the bottom line for someone promoting themselves, or even someone? I know a lot of people who are friends, let's say, of the artist, and they help them, promote them. What would be the bottom line of all this in terms of making that whole process as successful as possible?
So what brings it all together? We've hit on several of those points. You mentioned attitude. I think a good attitude is going to go really far. Don't be afraid to get out there and do the legwork and really focus on your grassroots approach. Be willing to meet other people and hone your craft, and really just making sure that you're using all the resources that are available to you to promote yourself, to promote your brand.
If anyone wants to get in contact with you for any reason, or Tom, how might they do that?
Sure, they are welcome to email me at shauna@tomkimmel.com. That's SHAUNA @tomkimmel.com. There's also contact information available direct on Tom's website at tomkimmel.com.
Okay. Shauna Jamison, thank you very much for being on Promoting Your Creative Passion.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.